What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 127 of the Steam Deck Podcast, Slipscreen Games' weekly gaming podcast all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined today, as always, by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
And Mr. Max Wright.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Full steam ahead, boys. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I've missed it.
The trio. The boys are back in town.
Been
In fact, is this not the first one in like 4 weeks we've been together?
It is. We've
been broken up for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. And it was a hell of a week for it, too, right? I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on in the world of video game news this week. And, I know the last time we talked about Nintendo Switch 2, some folks got a little prickly about it. But this time we got a question from one of you that brings it into the conversation this week. Which we got a write-in here from Armo from our Discord, who wrote in and said, should I sell my Steam Deck to buy a Switch 2? And now, Steve, you missed this, I think it was last week. It was one of the weeks that was just me and Max recently, where Armo wrote in and was asking about, like, what are more ways for me to get use out of my Steam Deck, right? Because it's great when I'm traveling, but I don't travel that often. You know, how else are you guys using it when you're not on the road or whatever? And, I think we kind of outlined the case for why we use the Steam Deck and what we get out of it, right? But I thought that this was interesting because, when we talked about Nintendo Switch 2 on this show last time, it was kind of in the context of like, is the Nintendo Switch 2 at all a threat to the Steam Deck, right? Because it could be, slightly more powerful in some levels, and it'll probably get a bunch of indies like day and date and things like that. So that was kind of the question back then. Now, we're getting this straight up comparison of like, should somebody make a switch here? Pun, it's not intended, but appreciated.
It's difficult, right? I really think it depends on who you are as a person. And like we've written down a bunch of stuff that we'll kind of break through in the doc. But I mean, if number one is, do you play Nintendo games? Because if you do, like it's a no-brainer, right? If you can only have one console and you want to play Mario Kart World, well then yeah, it's the one to have. It's the Switch 2. However, I think you got to look at the broader picture. Do you play indies? Do you want those day and date, like you said, P? Because they may not come to Switch 2 right at the beginning.
They'll almost definitely be cheaper on Steam.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, everything's going to be cheaper than some of the games that the prices Nintendo are charging.
That physical tax is no joke.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what, $80 for some of the games? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it depends on like what region you're talking about. It looks like it tops out at $80 for a physical copy in North America, but in euros, it's up to $90. It's crazy.
I was about to celebrate.
Wow.
Then, Jesus,
okay, 90 euros is a lot. I mean, they're clearly driving people to go digital,
right?
You get the discount on it. But yeah, that was a hard pill to swallow when I saw that. And like,
that's a conversation for a Flipscreen Games podcast in the future, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, well, we're going to break down the 2025, right, in this week's or next week's Flipscreen Games podcast. So we'll probably touch on it then. I think for me though, looking at what Nintendo showed and now some of the more information that we've got coming out, because there was a great blog post that Nvidia posted, basically bragging and breaking down everything that they've been able to achieve. Comparing it against the Steam Deck, it's pretty clear, at least to me, that the Switch 2 is significantly more powerful because of Nvidia's secret sauce, which they've written out. It's AI, it's DLSS, it's the tensor cores in there, it's the ray tracing cores that they've got. They say that they've got new RT cores, which bring real-time ray tracing, delivering lifelike lighting, reflections, and shadows for more immersive worlds. And the tensor cores obviously bring their DLSS to boost resolution for sharper details. We saw in the Direct, this thing can put out 1080p, 120 frames per second, no problem. It can stretch to 4K when it's docked. No problem whatsoever hitting 60 in the games they showed. And the games are gorgeous. They're not like limited, versions that are clearly kind of trying to run in a performance mode, similar to what we've seen on the Steam Deck. These games look beautiful and they're really pushing. And this is only the beginning. This is right at the beginning. We've seen what people were able to achieve with the Switch. you compare that to, I mean, we've already been talking about the fact that the Steam Deck is already feeling a little bit long in the tooth to some extent. There was a great video from Digital Foundry, which is well worth checking out. And it just can't keep up. It can't play some of the latest games. We saw some of those games, like Star Wars Outlaws, in Nintendo's presentation. So it really is like, at the moment, potentially, for someone who kind of wants to play those games and maybe wants a no-fuss entry point, it is the one to go for with the Switch 2.
Let me challenge that line of thinking a little bit, because one of the things that I saw a couple people call out in the chat when we were live streaming our reactions, or like when we got comments on the direct video that we did over on Nintendo Noise that you can go check out, is that some of the third party titles that were games that were already released, like Elden Ring, for example, I saw called out on multiple occasions, looks like it was running like a 720 30 kind of at that base resolution, and certainly didn't look like it was on the same graphical level as the first party software that we saw.
Which I can 100% believe. But I mean, that's probably a port that's not had as much effort put into it as, say, Duskbloods, the new exclusive from FromSoft, that probably will be a lot more polished and cater directly for Nintendo Switch 2. But yeah, I mean, some of the games they showed were old. Hitman, for example, there's a game from 2016 that has had 2 and 3 release, but it still harks back to 2016. It's an old game at this point. And Cyberpunk, which came out 5 years ago, which I think is kind of difficult for me to believe, but it was 5 years. It's 5 years old now.
And even that crazy, game, right? Like it didn't look bad at all. It looked good, but it looked like a lower resolution version of the game. And
I remember.
Go ahead, Max.
I was going to say, I remember calling out to you during when we were watching it, saying that looks like DLSS, like around the hair and stuff. It looks like DLSS artifacts.
You see the sparkles
on the podcast. Yeah, it just looks like DLSS, and that is. And I said on the podcast, I think Nintendo Noise, that Cyberpunk is the DLSS like poster child game. It's like, hey, our new technology can run Cyberpunk like this with RT and this, blah blah blah. So if you're going to do an Nvidia powered handheld like this, you're going to use Cyberpunk as your like, hey, look at what you can get out of this, hardware, software. Sorry, out of this hardware with the software.
And the question I am having looking at those is like, is this, to your point, is it an issue of like optimization where like maybe these games are like, these are vertical slices of games that are being worked on for Nintendo Switch 2, so they don't have their final
most of the
polished
were 2025. It's coming out sometime this year. We don't know when, but also, I mean, are these games that are they going to have the polish put into them, or are they moving on to the next title?
Maybe,
like how long have these been in development, and do people care? And also,
I guess though that raises the question of like, do these games look this way because they're not properly optimized, or is it because the games that look good because they are Nintendo games that are very polished for the hardware?
Quite possibly, because Nintendo are great at art direction. They can get a lot out of an old system. We saw that with Tears of the Kingdom, what they were able to achieve with that on 5-year-old hardware.
Yeah, because it's just a little interesting to me that Elden Ring, a game we know ran well on Steam Deck, looks a little, in that same kind of, like, it looks very similar to how it ran on Steam Deck, yet we're looking at this thinking that it's going to be more powerful, and it's like,
it kind of looks like that on everything, though. Like, I feel like it was jerky on Xbox Series X and PlayStation, and that you had to use VRR to smooth it out. Like, that game's not well optimized, and I don't think From really care, because they sold a lot of copies, and everyone was really excited about it anyway.
Yeah, it was choppy on everything, I think. But I do think that, because my initial reaction was, oh wow, portable Elden Ring, and I was like, oh, that's actually on the Steam Deck at 30 FPS, and with all the settings on low, and so it is possible. And I think with DLSS being better than the Steam Deck's capabilities in terms of FSR, I do think you could possibly get a good looking 60 FPS experience.
We don't know that mode doesn't exist, and we also don't know if there's just a bad capture, because we've seen that happen before as well, where they've just captured it at 30 frames per second, but actually it was running at 60, and we don't know, because a lot of their games, which is new for Nintendo, have a performance mode. You know, we saw that with Metroid, it can run up to 120 frames per second, and there is like the quality mode, which we've become accustomed to. But you don't get the level of finesse and fine tuning that you will get on a PC, like a Steam Deck. You can't dig deep into the settings and go, well, you know, I don't care about shadows, and I really want to push this as far as possible.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess the question then, right, with some of these like pull quotes that we have from Nvidia, right, where they're saying that it's like the console has 10 times the graphics performance of the Nintendo Switch, and that the variable refresh rate in handheld mode is also taking advantage of G-Sync. It's like, I don't know. I guess it begs the question of
I didn't realize that it was a VRR display. I don't think Nintendo even revealed that.
No, because I remember saying during the thing of like, oh, is it VRR? I don't know if they necessarily said that it was, but I think
they
think
didn't?
it was.
I thought they did say that in the
I don't remember them saying VRR. They definitely said.
No. I'm sorry. You're right. I was thinking they were bragging about how they had the HDR, even though it was an LCD screen.
HDR,
That's what I was
they've got HDR, which I was surprised by because it's an LCD, which means it must be like a mini LED LCD to have a decent number of like dimming zones to get HDR out of it. But yeah, the fact that it's VRR is impressive as well. It's another tick for the Switch against the Steam Deck. Obviously, we've seen PCs like handheld PCs like the ROG Ally have VRR, but that's how you can achieve that smoothness there. I'd be curious to see if they support VRR in docked mode as well, because that is something that the Steam Deck can do.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that's how Elden Ring, you know, that's how you had to make Elden Ring look good and play well with VRR.
I'm interested to see like the Digital Foundry breakdown on like how the dock actually works, and like because it seems like this is one of the things we've talked about that we would love to see for a Steam Deck too, right? Is like having some kind of like, you know, improved docked experience that would allow you to like unlock more power from the device when you're not having to run the screen and the touchpads and like, you know, just all the stuff that it is required to do while in handheld mode, and having this kind of like seemingly, you know, diverting that power towards, you know, pushing to that next benchmark, right? And being able to output at 4K and things like that. And then having the fan in the dock that keeps it cool when it is.
I think it's just the fan. I think that's all that it's giving it is it can run, it can draw more power from the.
Sorry,
the plug.
I didn't mean to imply that it had like a GPU or anything like that. I'm just saying that like it's going into a docked mode in which it is like like correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like it's like overclocking or something like that, right? It's like it's pushing a little bit more.
I think it's able to hit the TDP that chip natively would run at, versus in handheld mode, they probably underclocked it to say, right, let's run this because we only need to output a 1080p maximum. That's all we're ever going to achieve. Whereas in the dock, we can hit 4K, 1440p, 120 frames per second. You know, people want to drive it a little bit more.
The ROG Ally does it, right?
It does, yeah. The ROG Ally has like a turbo mode, I think they call it, when you dock it. But the ROG Ally also allows you to use an external GPU, which is not what's happening in this case.
Yeah.
I'd love something like that for the Steam Deck. I really would.
It's just I think the big sort of thing that I'm getting here versus the Steam Deck is that. While the screen is sort of like in theory nicer than the Steam Deck in that it's got the 120 FPS, it's got the VRR, all those sort of things. While it's not OLED, it's LCD. You know, that is the case. The docked experience on that is offered here is just, you know, miles and miles and miles away from what Steam Deck is in theory capable of right now. That you can plug into. If I plug my Steam Deck into my TV and I'm not streaming, I'm just playing, I'm guaranteed to have a worse experience. Whereas the fact that Metroid Prime, as an example, I can go from 720p 120 FPS, which again is already more than the Steam Deck is capable of, and then plug that into my TV and then get a 1080p 120 or a 4K 60, and it's, you know, the fact that it actually is better on the screen than it is on the you know, while it may not appear to be obviously, wow, that's so much better, it is technically, when you think about the resolution and the frame rate, better than the experience on the handheld. The Steam Deck is the opposite. It's always worse. It's always 720p blurry, or you're upscaling to 1080, your performance is worse. There isn't that, you know, that experience of just I drop this in, it just works. I plug it in,
and you've
fiddle
got
around for
to
fucking ages, and give up.
The software lets it down. You've got to quit the game, open it again, so it gets the right resolution, or you're in a 16:10 and it looks fucked up on your TV. It's got to a point with the Steam Deck where I only use it for things like party games. I'm playing Jackbox, I'll shove my Steam Deck in the dock, but otherwise I don't even bother with it because it is such a faff. The Switch nailed it in 2017, and the Switch 2 is going to nail it even more in 2025. And I think if the docked experience is something that you want, then it is a reason to get it, right? It is a true hybrid console. Whereas I feel like the Steam Deck, the code name for it, right? The Steam Pal, it really is like a companion device to someone who has a PC. You're at home and you have a PC, and then you hop onto your Steam Deck and you play the game that you were playing at home on the go.
Is that true?
Yeah, it was codenamed the Steam Pal.
Never heard that. That is the first time hearing
Yeah,
that.
I actually don't think I knew that either. That's a fun fact.
That's because Steve just made it up.
I did just make it. No, it's codenamed.
Steve's a trusted voice in the community. If he says it, people will start repeating it.
What community?
That's funny. This is kind of apropos of nothing, but I noticed that in Steve's bullet points of the Switch 2, one of the things he put was iToy, which I thought was funny.
Exactly what we said. The game
that
just
camera really does have big iToy energy.
It does,
bring that back, man. Bring back fun.
I loved it, and then I was just like, wow, they ripped Discord off big time. It's gonna, and I feel like for kids,
in a positive way, right?
Yeah, in a positive way. I feel like kids are gonna love it, and it's like it's Fisher Price Discord. Mm-hmm. When you're a teenager and you want to play with your friends on Discord, you're gonna want Discord, and that is something that the Steam Deck can offer you, right? It's like you've got.
Although
Discord
I think
any of the consoles can now.
The other side of it too, though, right, is that this is very similar to the native Steam chat experience that I've talked about on here.
Yeah,
that,
which is brilliant.
Which is good, So it's I do think that you're right that it's not. I don't think it's a replacement for Discord by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact that it is native on the console, if it's seamless, if it quote unquote just works the way that you want it to, I could see using it instead of Discord, right? If it's well, I already have the microphone in front of me, and all I have to do is I'm already jumping on like I said, right, when I used Steam Chat instead of Discord, it was because me and my buddy Jack were both playing Multiverses. We were both on our Steam Decks. We had the mic right there. So it's why go into another app that I have to pull out my phone for when we can just do it on the device that we're already playing on? It's not revolutionary tech or anything like that. But again, if it actually works simply, then yeah, I mean, that's the differentiator between you using something native and you going third party, right? Is if the native option, if I can literally just push the chat button because I'm already online playing Mario Party and you see that I'm online and you're inviting me to a game and I can press 2 buttons and we're in a call, we're going to do that,
That I think is great. And some of the matchmaking, it feels like they finally fixed it and they're able to do that. But I mean,
we'll see. I have my reservations because it's just I don't. The fact that there's a lot of online stuff makes me think that hopefully they have put more thought into it. But it's also it's Nintendo, man. It's their online is so archaic forever.
Do we know if it's friend codes still? Is that still the thing?
There are still friend codes, yeah.
Oh my god! So you don't even have a username still? That's
I don't know if you can also use a username, but I didn't watch all of the Treehouse stuff that they did today, but I saw for a minute they were showing people using the apps and
oh come on, that's insane.
It is ridiculous, isn't it? It's I don't want to say it. It's pathetic, and I think I laughed quite hard when I saw that they were still forcing the app. When they were oh. Hey, with this new Zelda version, you can get the app, and it just had Splatoon 2 next to it. I was like, no,
it's open Google Maps.
I don't use anything except Splatoon for that app.
And those are all the things, right? Where it's the Steam Deck obviously has the edge, right? Of just you're not dealing with that kind of bullshit, yeah.
I mean the upgrade fees as well. It's kind of they're not cheap to get the Switch 2 editions, and it granted you can get them as part of their subscription.
Also, I guess we don't know what it will cost to upgrade them. like if you buy a new version of the game, it's literally buying a full-priced game, which is crazy. But like if you already own the game, then you can pay to upgrade, and we don't know what that
I'm gonna guess 25.
It could be 10, it could be 25.
No, it's not gonna be 10. No way it's 10. At least 20.
I think it's per game. I think if it's got the extra DLC, it's going to be more like 20. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be. We're looking at like 10 to 15.
No, the Mario Party one with the Jamboree TV and all that shit they put in there with the extra camera stuff. There's no way they're charging $10 for that. They're charging for the Welcome to Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever the fuck it's called. How? We got the Aperture game on Steam Deck, and it was insane. It was great. It was phenomenal.
We got Astrobot on PlayStation.
Astrobot, yeah.
You know, like that's like a genuinely joyful 3 hours. Where it's like, dude, I like watching them demo that was like pulling goddamn teeth today.
Honestly, what goes through the head that goes, well, we've spent time on it. We've got to make money from it. We can't give it away for free.
It's like I did see some positive reactions to it. I'm going to be real. I did see people go, "Do you know what? Actually, this is good." And what I don't understand is if it costs $5, right? $6, whatever that costs. It costs a $5, right? Why, if it costs a $5, are they not just going, "All right, we either up the price of the console by a $5, or we just eat that $5"? Like a $5 is like an insulting amount of money for that thing to cost for
something that they wouldn't even call a game on the stream. They kept calling it an experience. I was like, oh my God, you guys got to stop with this. And that's the thing, right? Is like, I think it's like, I think the unfortunate thing, and this is like the thing I always come back to whenever someone asks for like these kind of recommendations, is like, I mean, you should have both, right? Like in an ideal world, you have both of them and you can use the things that they're, use one for what each one is better at. Right? Like emulation is obviously a million jillion times better on Steam Deck than the paid limited library you have on Switch, right? That's like no contest.
Even the performance on it on Switch was just choppy. It was weird to see. Like, come on, like I don't understand why that's the Wind Waker we get. I just don't get it. Like you had a version that was HD and you could have ported over and it was brilliant from the Wii U, and we could have had that, but you give us that version, which is still in 4:3, and we can't expand it to 16:9. I mean, Dolphin has like all of these like mods you can patch in, so you can have it 16:9 with HD textures, and it just looks beautiful. And we're just with the paid version just being there you go.
They specifically said, "Oh, improve resolution, improve blah blah." So they are emulating it and doing things to it. Why are they not just doing the full whack that we know it's capable of, because we've seen it done on PC for I don't know 20 years or however long that's been, probably longer.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating, and I think the most interesting, like the thing that got me most interested in Armo's question here was looking at the Metroid Prime stuff, because I remember a comment that we got when we did the like, oh, is like could Nintendo Switch 2 like be like a Steam Deck killer or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, the people hated that.
Yeah, they hated it. Which is like fair enough. But I remember one of the comments we got being like, what a joke, like I'll just play the Nintendo Switch 2 games on my Steam Deck, right?
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, like it's not capable of playing a game like Metroid Prime 4 at granted, I guess it could play the Switch version, right? But like you're not gonna hit 120 FPS on the deck, and like that, I don't know. I think the thing that like as a Steam Deck evangelist, right? The thing I'm most excited about with regard to like Nintendo Switch 2 is that like hopefully this gives Valve some like benchmarks to punch above for the Steam Deck 2 to be okay, cool. So like now like we, because they've been saying like we wouldn't do a number 2 until we have like a real like what feels like a generational leap. And looking at this and being like, cool, like let's try to punch like 20% above that.
It's difficult though,
is like
because
that,
this is an ARM system on a chip developed by Nvidia versus an AMD chip that's x86 that's nowhere near. It's in a different class.
So how do you envision Valve responds to this then when it comes time to draft up a sequel, right? If you want to make a Steam Deck 2 that's going to be, at least as powerful as a Switch 2, but ideally more powerful, right? How do you do that?
you've either got to wait for them to have something in the pipeline, AMD, that they can use and offers the performance per watt that they're gonna need. Or you put a bigger battery in there, so you just like brute force it, and you kind of work your way through it and go, right, we're just gonna run this we're gonna run it hotter, and we'll put a better cooling in there, and we'll put a bigger battery, and that'll do it. Or they switch to ARM, and that is a distinct possibility because we've seen them experimenting on SteamDB, and we spoke about it a few weeks back, with bringing Proton over to ARM-based devices. So it's possible. We speculated that maybe that was them bringing it to the Mac or bringing it to Android devices, but maybe they're working on an ARM version of the Steam Deck that does offer that power and can eke out a little bit more. But Nvidia is miles ahead of anyone with DLSS.
Do you see a world where they partner with Nvidia or AMD to try and come up with like a custom chip set the same way that they did for Switch 2? Because you think about the Switch 1, it also didn't have custom tech, right? It was just using what was already antiquated.
Yeah, it was a Tegra, X1 or whatever.
So like maybe that's something that they consider for the Steam Deck 2, is that they partner with one of the two and try to come up with something that specifically meets the needs of what they envision the next device being.
FSR 4, the newest version of FSR 4 on RDNA 4 is very impressive. I know that all the current consoles, all the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally, are all using. Rami, which chip is it? The Ryzen
Z1, and
Z1.
I think there's a Z2 version coming out as well.
So I remember us specifically saying that the newer version was going to have like RDNA 3 or whatever on it, which FSR 3, fine, still miles behind what DLSS is capable of. FSR 4, I have an FSR 4 capable GPU now, and it is very impressive. It is, there is none of that. You put it in like performance mode or quality mode or whatever, you aren't seeing like the same blurriness. You aren't seeing the same weird, like obvious, like shimmers. The Vaseline look. You aren't seeing waterfalls that look ridiculous and things like that. You are seeing higher quality images. So I think it is possible that if they wanted to partner with, so if Nvidia and Nintendo are locked in like this.
I don't know that they are exclusive. I feel like anyone could partner with Nvidia if they've got the cash.
Yeah, and right. I doubt that there's any like exclusivity agreement with Nintendo that they can only develop custom chipsets for them.
Maybe I'm just. Why have we not seen another one?
Maybe it's because like you're Nvidia, you're running everything through TSMC for your fabrication. You can only sell a limited number. And Nintendo's a huge customer that are going to be buying this exact chip for the next 7 years, and they're never gonna move from it. And you can just keep pumping out the same chip. It's going to get cheaper for you to make every single time.
And if it's as successful as the last console, right? Like it's a guaranteed, like you'll move hundreds of millions of them over the course of the next decade, right? Whereas like I think to your point, Steve, partnering with a smaller OEM, right? Like, is that the right acronym?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Partnering with a smaller OEM, it's like, yeah, unless they have a ton of money to offer for you to do that, it's like you're probably not going to see that same return.
I could see them
even Valve, right? Like if the Steam Deck is sold, I think it's in the neighborhood of like 4 to 5 million units, right? Is I think the latest.
But it's not in the hundreds of millions, which is where they're at. But you know what? I could see them wanting to expand into that market, to try and have their system on a chips in PCs in general. We've seen Windows on ARM, and those devices now are available, and you can get those. They're using Qualcomm chips exclusively at the moment, but if Nvidia did want to break into that market, then those chips would make sense in a handheld PC. But at that point, there's still a lot of work that's going to need to go in to get these games running on an ARM chip, because at the moment they expect to run on an x86 chip, and the instruction set is completely different. You might even need to go through an emulation layer rather than a transpilation layer. So it's different. There's a lot of work there, and maybe they just have to wait and brute force through it, and that's all they can do. But I am excited to see what they do, and I do think stuff like this is gonna kind of light a bit of a fire under them to go, right, okay, we do need to do something, because this was the place, the Steam Deck was the place to play Cyberpunk, to play Elden Ring, to play Hitman, and now you can go and play those games on the mainstream handheld console that you couldn't play them on before. And seemingly going forwards, that's where you're going to be able to play the AAA games, because games like that are running on Unreal Engine 5 that won't run on the Steam Deck will run on the Switch, because it has ray tracing cores and it will be able to play them. And that's something that Steam Deck players are probably going to have to get used to, the fact that they're not going to be able to play games while people over on the Camp Nintendo will be able to play them.
Not to be down on Nintendo, because I love Nintendo, but I think it will light an even bigger fire, or sort of make these companies think, oh, we should do something, because the fact that it's Nintendo, like a company that is famously not graphics focused, or you know, if anything, they are known as like, oh, they're the one that they don't do graphics. And if that's the company that's beating you out in their handhelds, and you're supposed to be like, hey, look, aren't we better? You know, the whole selling thing right now for the handheld consoles is it's like a Switch, but whereas now it might end up being like, oh, it's like a Switch, but what? It's like a Switch, but you can play some PC games, but the Switch can do this, that, the other. It's got this much better stuff. It's, you know, it's more of a competitor in terms of the specs, not just so much that the Switch outsells them hundreds of times.
I kind of feel like the Switch has moved beyond specs. And that's clear for me from the fact that we didn't even know it had a VRR display until Nvidia posted about it. It's like, they don't care about that. They're selling you, as Pete hates, an experience, and the experience is
no, I don't hate it. I was just teasing them for trying to sell this shit for $5, man. It's an instruction manual.
Yeah, but you know, the experience to the customer, does a kid playing Mario Kart World care that it's 10 times more powerful than the last Switch that they had, and it's probably 2 times as powerful as the Steam Deck? I doubt they do, because they're just playing a game and they're enjoying it, and that's really what Nintendo's in the market for.
If you're talking about kids, they might not have even had a Switch. That's right. Like, think about it. Right? Like this Switch has been around this long now that it's like, yeah, there's a whole new generation of kids that this will be their first console, and this will be the benchmark, right? So it's like they don't know. I think the thing that's like interesting about this is for that person who is that more casual Steam Deck user, right? Who was using it as an indie machine, who was, using it as like a way to play the AAA more powerful games that just weren't available on their Nintendo Switch, right? Or were never going to be available there, right? Or again, right, somebody who's like already in on the PC space. So like I think like if you're that person who like this was your first inroad, right? Like you hadn't had a Steam library and you just jumped in to like get all the advantages it has as a handheld over the Nintendo Switch, then I could see that maybe being a situation where you consider making the trade like Armo is, but. Yeah, I don't know. I think like we always come back to the thing that it's like it's just got such different use cases that like I don't see them as being super analogous unless you're not using it in the like cool creative ways that you can use it, right? Like if you're not taking advantage of fan games, if you're not getting into emulation and ROM hacks and games that are exclusive to the PC marketplace, or loading other launchers and using it to stream games from your console or your PC, or like that's the thing about the deck, right? Is that like it's not just a console, right? Like this is going to be just a console. It's going to be a very powerful console with some very attractive games. So I get Armo asking the question, but yeah, I think for me, like if you're somebody who is actively using your Steam Deck and enjoying your Steam Deck, you're not gonna want to trade it in for something that's like a walled garden, right? But I think if you're somebody that like is looking for another device to add to the rotation or whatever, then it's like, yeah, sure, right? Like I think if you're a Steam Deck user and you're wondering like, will there be a reason for me to buy it? I think based on what Steve said, I think the answer is pretty clearly yes, right? It will be capable of things that your Steam Deck isn't capable of in the same way that you bought your Steam Deck, some of you anyway, bought it because of what it was capable of doing.
Yeah, I did.
Switch wasn't doing.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I want to be able to play like Far Cry on the go.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, we've not seen Far Cry on the Switch yet, but Star Wars Outlaws was there. Pretty sure Ubisoft aren't going to leave money on the table because they really need the cash right now. So,
surprising they didn't talk about, they didn't show Assassin's Creed, right? You think that would be like an obvious, oh yeah, you can play Assassin's Creed on this. You know,
I guess that's the question though, is like, I feel like we still don't know. Like, I feel like the assumption is that, like, yeah, you'll be able to play AAA games like that, but it's like, will you though? Like, because it's like the two big AAA like titles that were like future titles that we talked about were an exclusive designed for the console, so obviously that'll run. And then like 007, which like IO doesn't make like super, like we talked about, right? Like Hitman is obviously still making money and finding new audience and everything, but like it looks and runs and plays like an old game. And the idea that like 007 is going to be like Razor's cutting edge AAA game is like, I don't know that that's going to be the case. Like, it might be a very stylized game that's like way more about being like a deep immersive sim with a ton of layers and, or being very, like cinematic and stylish in a way that like doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be, like a quote unquote next gen title, right?
Yeah,
so it's like,
I think
I don't
they're
know.
Probably going to push the envelope a little bit. They always have with the jumps from like, I think it was Hitman 2 to Hitman 3, and they really focused on like, well, we're going to bring reflections into the engine, and we had like real time reflections brought into like the mirrors, and you could see with the amount of CPU performance we got out of the latest gen consoles. That was the big thing that was holding Hitman back. They were able to do huge crowds in Hitman 3 that they weren't able to do in the first two games. We had like that Formula One track in Miami, and it was just people everywhere. And like that was the only way you could do that is by having more CPU power to put more things on the screen at any one time. I wonder what the performance of the CPU is on the Switch 2, because they've spoken about the GPU performance, the graphic performance being 10 times more powerful than the Switch 1. But Nvidia and Nintendo haven't spoken to the CPU performance and whether we're going to potentially see some bottlenecks there.
Would make sense. I was thinking this as well about like, I don't know how much RAM this thing has. Whether it, we don't know. There's a lot of questions in terms of like what can it run at the same time without having to quit out or just like close this to look at the eShop. You can't just quickly pop in and look at the eShop. You have to close your game, boot into that, wait for it to load. Like what can it maintain? What's the is it going to have any kind of like duck out of this and go into an app like you do on the Xbox or the PlayStation, or even just duck into another game?
No.
The fact that hasn't been mentioned makes me think no. Yeah.
No, I think you'd show that. My gut feeling is they have 16 gigs of RAM in this, which would be comparable with the Steam Deck, because it's going to be shared RAM for both CPU and GPU. There won't be like dedicated VRAM. So my guess would be 16 gigs. Maybe a little bit higher if they're trying to hit 4K, but they're probably not going to have 4K textures. They're probably going to have maybe 1440p textures.
How much did you say you thought?
16 gigs in the Switch 2 would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean that's what the PlayStation has. It's got 12 and a half accessible, looks like.
Oh yeah, because it's 12 and a half accessible to the game, and then they keep
the rest is for the OS
operating system,
so they can actually do stuff.
That's a heavy fucking OS.
So I mean,
there were some Switch games like Overwatch that you couldn't even clip. You couldn't record a video because it just used so much RAM that the recorder in the background couldn't run. And that was their way of solving that, was just, okay, we'll just get rid of the recorder. I wonder if I don't know if the Discord thing they've got going on here, if that's going to need RAM, or if that's going to have like system dedicated RAM that's just for running the chat. Considering it's built into the thing, you'd think that would be something they have to like. I don't know. You're going to press a button that's going to say you can't chat in this game. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Overwatch 2 players, you can't chat in this game. Is that going to be a thing?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, the Switch has 4 gigs of RAM, so even if you went up to even if you went to 12 and you switch from DDR4 to DDR5, it's faster sticks, you triple in the capacity. I could see 12 potentially even being enough, but I would imagine they would push for 16. Unless they don't need to. It could be that DLSS is able to get them what they want to achieve with 12 gigs of RAM, and it's a significant saving. So why would you kind of put something in you don't need? One thing I was like interested in was the micro SD Express cards, and I'd love to see those, as Gaming on Linux would also said in the Discord, rolled out to other PC handhelds, because they are significantly faster than normal micro SD cards.
Significantly more expensive as well.
Yeah, I actually, I think while we're like talking, around the idea of like how Valve could respond with a Steam Deck 2, like I think Team Linux wrote in over on the Discord with the Steam Deck 2 wish list, and I'm interested, Steve, for you to tell me what you think about this. Like, do you think this is reasonable, or is this gonna lead to too high of a price point or something like that? So here's what Team Linux had to say. USB 4 and Oculink. I want eGPU support. 90 hertz plus VRR OLED display when frames are unstable. I don't want to notice it. 920 by 1200 resolution. I would still play most games at 800p/720p, but games like Magic the Gathering Arena could use the extra pixels. Same physical size. Improved APU performance and efficiency. Support for SD Express cards, like you just said. Double RAM to 32 gigabytes. Allow allocating up to 16 gigabytes of VRAM. PCIe 2280 NVMe drives. I want 4 terabyte of storage options, and then Wi-Fi 7. And then if they make a Steam controller too, can it have wireless tech that is not Bluetooth, that is built into the Steam Deck 2, so it can be low latency and not have to have a dongle?
So I think most of this makes sense. Like I want Oculink. I would love to have eGPU support. I'd love a VRR display. I think that is something that the Steam Deck could really benefit from. I
think that's a way it could really set itself apart too, right? Like being able to take advantage of an eGPU could really make the docked experience like something else.
Yeah, I think 1920 by 1200 resolution makes sense now when you look at the 1080p display that this Switch 2 has, because it's the same resolution, but it's 16 by 10. So potentially that would make sense. Physical size, I want it smaller. It's chunky. And I
don't know how you do that though, right? Like, because you were also saying like we put a bigger battery in it. It's like I don't know how you reduce the form factor of it, like, at all in a meaningful way.
The Switch has the same form factor, and the battery life is worse. So I don't. It's gone from 3.5 to 6. I might be wrong here.
Well, if you compare it to the original, which is what they've been doing, and they're very sneaky about that, then it's not worse. It's better. But if you compare it to even the first revision that they did, then yes, it is worse. And I don't like that they were.
Wait, hang on. Nintendo's been comparing it to the original.
They've been comparing it to the launch Switch. All of their stats compared to the launch Switch.
All I've seen is the negatives. I didn't even know they compared it. I didn't even know they even attempted to compare it favorably. But still, you even like I don't think it's possible to get it smaller. The Steam Deck. I mean, sorry.
No,
to get the.
I don't think you can. I think the same physical size is honestly like even asking a lot.
Come on, seriously, you're gonna end up with like that Ione Akun though. Like that thing was massive with the like 12-inch display on there. It was huge. Wi-Fi 7 would be great, but I don't have a Wi-Fi 7 router. I don't plan on upgrading my Wi-Fi 6E router anytime soon. I think 32 gigs of RAM is the potential thing that's not going to happen there.
That seems really high, right? Like, it's way more.
A lot. Yeah. And I don't know that you need 16 gigabytes of VRAM, because what textures are you loading into VRAM that you need 16 gigs for?
So the current Nvidia GPUs are all 12 at the moment. Like the not other than the top end, but like the 70 class, the 60 class, they're all 12. And a lot of the people who the Nvidia detractors, of which I am sometimes one of them, will say 12 gigabytes of VRAM in 2025. You know, you want to future proof yourself, get 16 gigabytes, get AMD 16 gigabytes. If you go back 4 years ago when the 4070 came out with 12, people were saying 12 gigabytes in 2021, ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. It's always going to be the same thing, that it's now been 4 years later and we're not seeing these games that are coming up that need 16. The only ones I can think of are like Jedi Survivor, which is so poorly managed. It needed like 20 gigabytes. And it was like, well, that's, only like the 90 class cards have that. So I think, for future-proofing, people will say you might need 16, but that's like you're running in 4K.
Yeah, you're running natively in 4K.
Packs.
You're not even using upscaling or any kind of anything like FSR. I feel like you could get away with 16. I think you can get away with. I'd probably go up to 20, 24 at a push. I don't know. Like, it's a lot. It feels like a lot.
It'd be nice. But yeah, that seems like a big upgrade. I think this is when you're getting into the point where it's like, some of this stuff is just like cost prohibitive, right?
Yeah,
like
which I think Nintendo's found. I think that's why we haven't got an OLED display.
Oh yeah,
because I think they'd love to.
People are already complaining about the price. Like, people are like upset that it's $450. If had an OLED screen, it would definitely be more than $5. You know,
I'm pretty sure I told everyone it's going to be expensive. Pretty sure I said that it was going to be.
Yeah, your prediction was still way off, though, man.
I said $499, right? Was that
no? You said $351.
Yeah, because I did Prices Right.
Yeah,
I did Prices Right rules. So I won because I was.
No, actually, because Chewy came in and made a prediction after you.
Whoa, come on! I didn't even know Chewy was in the mix.
Well, he cheated. He cheated the same way you cheated. I don't know.
I'd have gone with 450 because I thought that's the price they were going to hit at.
He said 4, so.
Okay. Damn.
So
Chewy.
Funny.
Come on.
He was like, let me get in the mix. I was like, good. Screw Steve over. He screwed Max over. You were right though. Definitely pricier.
Yeah. People think it's going to be even pricier in the States as well, based on some of the stuff kicking off. I'd love to talk to you about that on Flip Screen as well, and what implications, because the ESA put out a good piece this week.
Yep. I'm hoping I can buy my unit before that happens.
Speaking of, did you see the Japan only version?
Yeah, which is
the Switch 2. Bizarre.
So much cheaper. Yeah, it's like $100 cheaper.
Yeah. So it's $130 cheaper.
There's two versions, Max. There's one there's two Japanese versions. You can get a Japan only model where you can't play anything region locked. And it's $130 cheaper. If you buy the region free version, then it's
so weird. I thought Nintendo were.
You can't change the language on it either. It's only Japanese on the.
How much did it cost to learn Japanese? Do you reckon there's a saving to be made there?
I think probably yes.
Yeah.
How much is a Wani Canny subscription? Go have a look and see if that's $130. And if it is, then you could learn it.
You're like, shit, I gotta. Well, it comes out in the wash because you got to pay for over a year of Duolingo.
I think it's been interesting to see people. There's just like this there was an article last week from there's that video from Digital Foundry where they were like, the Steam Deck doesn't run AAA games very well. And people were like, of course it doesn't. What are you expecting the Steam Deck to be able to play these AAA games? That's ridiculous. And now that the Switch is sort of capable of doing it,
people want it.
Yeah. There's just been like a change of like, they're almost like detracting the Switch of being like, well, there's no way it does it. They're lying. They're doing this. It might, compared to my Steam Deck. And it's like, why can't you just accept that the newer one
technology
is better?
Why can't we be friends?
Yeah.
Why can't
people are on the copium. That's what it is. They don't want to accept the fact.
It's addictive.
Yeah, they just can't accept the fact that something new always comes along. There is always the next best
shiny
thing.
new toy. Yeah.
You will get left behind.
And that's okay.
But I think it's like, if you're disappointed by the idea of having to buy a new Steam Deck, then I can understand why you're feeling that way. But I think if you're excited for what comes next, this is only going to
I can't wait.
That timeline up.
Wait. Yeah, I'm excited to see. I I sold my old Steam Deck. I bought an OLED model. The next Steam Deck that comes along, I'll be selling this one and I'll be getting the next one. You know, I'd love to get to the point where they're doing one of these every couple of years, and we can stay up, and then we can play the latest and greatest games on the go. It'd be nice.
And we can do it together.
Yeah, we could do it together. We can hop on the Steam chat, or whatever it's called, and we can play games together. Fucking hell.
Well, I was play some multiverses?
Oh, God.
We got 3 more months or something.
I was so disappointed that C button is just that chat feature that I'm never going to use. I'm really disappointed.
Yeah, I think as soon as they pressed it and that happened, I was like, oh, that just takes away all of the fun rumors. That's gone.
Yeah, we probably should have assumed that that's what it was.
Oh yeah, like
between the two rumors, we're like, what if it's the cooler one? And it's like, of course it's not.
The dock that we'd seen, or like all we've seen at the dock, at no point did it even remotely suggest that there was any kind of like remote or like Bluetooth or wireless anything built in. That it was just, it had a high powered, it had like a big power connector on it. That's all we knew about it, and we were still like, well, what about this thing that has definitely been rumored that obviously makes sense?
But what about the second USB socket on the top? It's gonna have a flip screen, and we'll be able to play DS games. It'll be great. You just plug a USB camera into it that looks like a potato, and you can play some iToy games from 2002.
Hey, to be fair,
that's not a great thing.
You can get the camera you can get one that looks like a piranha plant, and then it won't.
That one did look cool. That's pretty good. I did see that. The piranha plant one was cool.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, the other one looks like a Skype camera from 2004.
It's the iToy 2. Leave it alone. we gotta punch blocks in front of Bowser. It's gonna be great.
Oh my god. I saw that and I was like, how's that gonna work? If you all sit in like one part of the room, because my room is not like that. We can't all sit in front of the camera.
Well, no, I think the implication was you're playing online.
No, they said in the direct, like, you're all in the same room and with one camera, you can pick out the 4 faces in the room and you can all play together.
I don't know.
I'm curious how that's gonna work.
I mean, you know what? It's probably just this. It's probably just the same way that like Just Dance works. Honestly, it's like we've been doing that since like 2005. I think that's okay.
That is valid. That is fair. Yeah. Forgot about that game even exists. Wow, Ubisoft's gonna make a lot of money with this camera with Just
Dance is back, baby.
Yeah. Do you know what? The Switch 2 camera has single-handedly saved Ubisoft from the brink of bankruptcy. Forget Tencent's $3.8 billion investment. It was the Switch 2 camera.
Here's my question: when are we gonna get the Steam Deck camera that I can plug into the top so that I can message my friends on Steam chat?
I bet the Switch 2 camera works. It's just a USB camera.
That's a good point. You probably could just plug it in, right?
Yeah. Plug it in. See
what the piranha plant camera.
You know what,
Max? Are you trolling me?
No, have you not seen that?
This is the second time you've done this to me. You did this to me yesterday too. I just said this. Steve reacted to it. We had a whole thing, and then now you're like, "Did you see the piranha?" He did this to me yesterday during the direct. I was like, I recounted something. He was watching a trailer, and then he's like, "Oh, did you see?"
I was just looking at the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 runs at 40 FPS on the Switch 2, and I was comparing that in my head to Cyberpunk 2077 and that's docked. I was comparing that to Cyberpunk 2077 running at 30 FPS on the Steam Deck, and I was like, all right, I was trying to get like an idea in my head.
It's a little
I'm
bit
sorry that I was doing stuff in my head.
Powerful. I didn't know it ran at 40 FPS. Is that confirmed? You confirmed that?
Yeah, Cyberpunk, blah, blah, where is it? CD Projekt Red has spoken up to get ahead of some of the static around Switch 2 prices. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition. Oh, fuck's sake, where's it gone? Runs at 40 FPS on Switch 2 in performance mode while docked. So that means what? 1080p, 40 FPS. You're probably not getting any ray tracing. But that's impressive. Especially if you can get that on a 120 hertz screen, VRR display. That's going to look good.
And it's got an HDR pipeline. Finally, brilliant. Yep. Love that. It's going to be good. I'm excited for it. Are you two picking up a Switch 2?
Yeah,
you decided
for sure. I'm a day one guy now. That's just who I am.
Yeah, I've been back and forth on this because I was like, I don't need it. I'm not that bothered by. I really like the idea of Mario Kart, but is it? Do I need it? And then I saw that Metro Prime footage, and then I saw the Metro Prime comparison between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2 version. And I was like,
I love how he's like, yeah, I was like, I didn't need it. And then I saw the direct, and then I decided I wanted one.
No, this is after the direct. When I saw all the prices of things, I was like, I don't need this.
The price was a sticker shock for a lot of people, I think. Yeah.
There's a live reaction to us discovering the prices of us. I just go, oh, I've just seen.
Yeah, we're like, oh no. We were like so excited, and then we're like, oh jeez, that sucks. That really blows, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe we'll see. If I can muster up the cashish.
Prediction: Max will either get one day one, or he will not, and then he will get one within the first week because he will hear you and I talk about it, and then he'll get FOMO, and then he'll go and hunt for one, and it'll take him twice as much effort to get one as it would have if he had just pre-ordered it.
There's no evidence of that ever happening once on this show. No, I'd like you to find me one example of that, please, if that ever happening.
I don't need evidence. It's a prediction.
Oh no, that happened before. Do you
know it did happen?
When you guys
that is what happened with the OLED. Yeah, and you did it on vacation. You'll get drunk one time.
That didn't go through, and I was like, I'm glad that didn't go through because I really almost bought one of those. And a week later, I was like, why don't I just buy it anyway?
Yeah, I totally forgot that that's what happened. Yeah, literally, the first time you have a drink after that thing's on the market, you'll be like, pre-order. I can't believe you haven't done it yet.
You can play it with the wonky mouse mode. You know, that's what you want. You want to sit with a little TV dinner tray on your lap with a mouse, like with a Switch controller on its side like this. The world's worst mouse. The world's worst mouse was previously the Apple Magic Mouse. It's now the Switch 2 Joy-Con.
I liked my Magic Mouse.
Here's the thing, though. This mouse can vibrate, Steve. Don't undersell that. Okay. Who knows? Now you could have a mouse vibrating when you use it. Does that have any practical application? I don't know, but Nintendo sure seems excited about it.
If I can feel the gunshots in my hand, I'd like that. I do like. My initial reaction when I saw Metro Prime, they're like mouse controls was and I was like, well, that's how I play these games.
Yeah.
And then I saw the guy using it on the Streamhouse stream and thought that looks awful because he's shit. Then I watched the GVG Good Vibes Gaming video and they were using it and I was like, that looks better. Turns out the guy on the Treehouse just doesn't know how to play video games. No offense to him.
Oh no, don't start that again. It's like the fucking Cuphead of thing all over again.
Look, all right, I'm just gonna throw this one out there. Maybe they weren't very good, but also they're also doing a broadcast. Like
there was a lot of pressure on them. There's a lot of pressure on them. They are like 4 hours into the gauntlet. It's very like dictator.
Just be a little kind.
Which one was it? Was it the one with the good hair?
No, it was one with the bad hair. Sorry, the no hair. It was the one without the hair. Is no hair bad hair? That's a question. That's an after dark question for another time.
No hair. You know, I want
no
hair.
Is that a haircut? Does that count? It's like it's default. You know?
yeah, like the default me.
Yeah.
This is a British only thing. It's the only one I'm going to do today. I do apologise. Do you ever think it was weird, Steve, how Max Branning from EastEnders was bald but also ginger at the same time? Isn't that really impressive?
You know what? What I don't get about him is how so many women were attracted to him.
Are you kidding me? Do I got to cut this out? You're just sideswiping some guy?
I said one. Oh, I see. Right. Okay. I thought you meant you were having a go at us. You're having a go at Steve.
No, Steve's just being a bitch.
He's an awful human being, and he's a character on a soap opera. It's okay to be horrible.
Okay, he's a jerk. All right, that's fine.
He's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know the man. I'm just saying he's out here cheated. He's catching strays.
He cheated on his wife with his son's wife.
Oh my god! Holy shit! Okay.
Not a nice man.
All right, look, listen. I would love to talk more about that, but that's an after dark topic. Okay, so if we want to talk for 20 more minutes after this about that, let's go for it. But we got to wrap it up now.
You know what? I'm glad we're all getting Switch 2s. It's going to be great. I look forward to you getting one, Max. Tell you what, if they announce a Metroid Prime 4 edition, there's no chance you're not buying it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm getting that.
We know.
He'll get
if there's
anyway.
Even if I have to get the Metroid Prime 4 stuff before I get the Switch 2, that's how it has to be. Then I'm going to do it, you know.
Okay, yeah. Before we finish, I just want to thank the commenter that said my piercings didn't match my glasses.
Oh, you saw that one?
That was great.
I don't usually deliver the mean comments about other people. I just show you guys mean comments people say about all of us, but if it's just about one of you.
I thought it was fab. I quite like the silver piercings, but maybe it's time to go for black ones. Let me know in the comments if that would be better. And would
Do you think that's the
face
comment
more.
that they want them to be black?
Maybe, or maybe I need silver glasses. I don't know what it is.
I kind of was like, at first I was like, do they mean that having glasses and piercings doesn't match?
Thought. I was like, what? It's like me and Pete both have piercings. Max should go get a ring, and then we're 3 for 3.
I have rings somewhere. I don't know where they are. Oh, you mean like a
nose ring?
Right,
he
I thought you
pokes
meant
the front of his
hand ring.
nose. Yeah, Max comes in next week and he's got a ring like right in the center. Just it's like a sideways septum. All right,
Albert.
folks. Well, I'm gonna end the handbrakes there for the day. Thank you guys for joining us here on another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast, and of course, a very special thank you to our Patreon producers for the month of April. Wait, is that right? Yeah, it's April.
Yeah.
They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valens, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Sobe, Project Julian, Steve Stompy, Susan Still Likes Cats and Also Boobies, Voodoo Vic, That One Kid Nick, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Remember, if you want to go check out our sister shows like Nintendo Noise, where we are covering all of the Switch 2 announcements as they happen. Max and I broke down the Direct yesterday. We watched 60%, 70% of the Nintendo Treehouse today. I went as long as I could. And we'll be live again tomorrow to catch the as much as we can stomach of the second day. So go check that stuff out if you haven't already. Come hang out live if you can. And, of course, flipscreen.games, you'll keep up with all the cool stuff that we're doing here at the Flipscreen Games family. I don't know. I'm tired, guys. I've been live for like fucking 5 hours today. I got to go to bed. Thank you for tuning
get a
in.
good night's sleep.
Thank you for tuning in. Flipscreen.games. Go comment. Join the Discord. If you want to go above and beyond, you can support us on Patreon. You'll get extra content like our daily show, the Daily Checkpoint. I think that's all the things I have to plug. Like the show. Subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell. If you're an audio listener, give us a review. I think that's everything. I'm exhausted, and I'm going to go to sleep. See you next week, baby!